The holding cell smelled like disinfectant and despair. Karen sat on the narrow bench, her designer blazer wrinkled for the first time in years, staring at the concrete walls that seemed to mark her perfectly ordered life. 6 hours had passed since her arrest, and the initial shock had crystallized into cold, hard fury. The bailiff had been unnecessarily rough, she decided. Judge Martinez was clearly corrupt. The entire justice system was rigged against conscientious homeowners like herself. She'd already composed 17 different complaints in her head, each one more scathing than the last. "Mrs. Whitmore?" A young public defender appeared at the cell door. "I'm here to discuss your bail hearing." "Where's Peterson?" Karen stood, smoothing her blazer with trembling hands. "He withdrew from your case about an hour ago. Something about professional differences." Karen's stomach dropped. Peterson had been her third attorney in 2 years. The first had quit after she demanded he subpoena the mayor over a parking dispute. The second had fled after she'd insisted on suing the county for allowing a food truck within half a mile of her subdivision. "Fine," she said, lifting her chin. "I'll represent myself. I have a law degree." The public defender's eyebrows shot up. "From where?" "Online. Phoenix University. I graduated summa cum laude." The young man's face went carefully neutral. "Mrs. Whitmore, I really think I don't need your help. I know my rights." 2 hours later, Karen stood before Judge Martinez again, this time in an orange jumpsuit that clashed horribly with her complexion. The courtroom was packed again, but this time the energy felt different. Predatory. Her neighbors weren't just angry anymore, they were entertained. "Mrs. Whitmore," Judge Martinez began, "you're here for your bail hearing on charges of contempt of court and disturbing the peace. Do you have counsel?" "I'm representing myself, Your Honor." Karen's voice was steady, controlled, professional, "and I'd like to enter a motion to dismiss all charges based on judicial misconduct." A collective intake of breath filled the courtroom. Even the judge looked impressed by her audacity. "On what grounds?" he asked. "Bias, corruption, and violation of my First Amendment rights." Karen pulled out a handwritten document. "I've prepared a full brief detailing your conflicts of interest, including your wife's membership in the same book club as 3 of my neighbors." The public defender closed his eyes. In the gallery, someone started laughing. "Mrs. Whitmore," Judge Martinez's voice was dangerously quiet, "are you seriously arguing that my wife's book club membership constitutes judicial bias?" "Among other things, yes." Karen's confidence was returning. This was familiar territory. Rules, regulations, proper procedures. According to Canon 3A of the Code of Judicial Conduct, "Mrs. Whitmore," the judge's interruption was sharp. "I'm going to stop you right there. Your motion is denied. Bail is set at $50,000. Karen's world tilted again. $50,000. Her savings account, depleted by legal fees and HOA lawsuit settlements, couldn't cover that amount. She'd mortgaged her house twice to fund her various legal crusades. I need to make a phone call," she said, her voice smaller than she'd intended. But who could she call? Her sister in Oregon hadn't spoken to her in 3 years, not since Karen had tried to have her evicted from their mother's funeral reception for wearing the wrong color dress. Her ex-husband had blocked her number, her own children. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She was alone. "Your Honor, I demand you recuse yourself immediately." Karen Whitmore's voice cracked like a whip through the packed courtroom, her perfectly manicured finger jabbing toward Judge Martinez's bench. "This is a clear conflict of interest." The judge's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline as gasps rippled through the gallery. Karen's own attorney, a weary-looking man named Peterson, dropped his head into his hands with an audible groan. "Mrs. Whitmore," Judge Martinez said carefully, "please sit down and allow your counsel to—" "No." Karen shot to her feet, her blazer pristine despite the chaos she'd unleashed. "I know your wife shops at the same grocery store as Mrs. Henderson. You're obviously biased." The opposing counsel, representing her neighbor who dared to paint his shutters navy instead of the HOA-approved forest green, stared in bewilderment. Even the court reporter had stopped typing, her mouth agape. This wasn't how Karen had planned her morning. She'd arrived at 7 a.m., 2 hours early, with 17 color-coded binders of evidence, witness statements, and photographs documenting every violation in Willowbrook Estates. Her case was airtight. The Henderson family's shutters were clearly navy, not forest green, and their mailbox was a full inch too tall according to the community guidelines she'd personally helped draft. Mrs. Whitmore, Judge Martinez's voice carried a warning edge. If you continue this outburst, I'll hold you in contempt. Contempt? Karen's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. I'm a tax-paying citizen. I pay your salary. And I'm telling you that this entire proceeding is a sham. The courtroom erupted. Karen's neighbors, packed into the gallery like sardines, began shouting. Mrs. Chen called her a power-hungry lunatic. Old Mr. Jameson yelled something about property values. The Hendersons' teenage son started recording on his phone. Bailiff. Judge Martinez's gavel crashed down repeatedly. Clear the gallery. But Karen wasn't finished. She'd spent 3 sleepless nights preparing for this moment, fueled by righteous indignation and an unhealthy amount of coffee. As ATOA president for 6 consecutive years, she'd maintained order in Willowbrook Estates through sheer force of will and an encyclopedic knowledge of homeowner regulations. Nobody, not even a judge, would undermine her authority. I'm filing a complaint with the state judiciary, she announced, pulling out her phone. This is going straight to the governor's office. Mrs. Whitmore. Peterson finally found his voice. Please, for the love of. Don't you dare try to silence me. Karen whirled on her attorney. I hired you to win this case, not to roll over like a trained poodle. The judge's face had gone from merely stern to thunderous. Mrs. Whitmore, you are now in contempt of court. Bailiff, escort her. You can't do this to me. Karen's voice cracked with genuine shock. I'm Karen Whitmore. I've been featured in Homeowners Monthly. I've increased property values by 30%. As the bailiff approached with handcuffs, Karen's world tilted. This couldn't be happening. She was the good guy here. Karen's house sat empty for 3 days while she remained in custody, unable to make bail. From her cell window, she could see the Hendersons' navy shutters gleaming in the sunlight. A daily reminder of her defeat. Other neighbors had begun taking liberties too. Shade spotted at least 4 illegal lawn decorations and what looked like an unauthorized fence extension. Her empire was crumbling, one violation at a time. You have a visitor, the guard announced on Thursday morning. Karen's heart leaped. Finally, someone had come to help. She hurried to the visiting room, expecting to see Peterson or maybe even her estranged daughter. Instead, she found herself face to face with Mrs. Henderson, the woman whose shutters had started this entire mess. Hello, Karen, Linda Henderson said quietly. She looked older than Karen remembered, with new lines around her eyes and gray threading through her brown hair. What do you want? Karen's voice was hoarse from disuse. I wanted to talk, really talk, without lawyers or judges or... Linda gestured vaguely at the institutional walls around them. If you're here to gloat, I'm here because I'm worried about you. Linda's words hit Karen like a slap. We all are. Karen stared at her neighbor, her enemy, searching for sarcasm or mockery. She found only genuine concern. My shutters, Linda continued, they're not navy, they're forest green. Just a different brand of paint than what you approved. The lighting in your photos made them look darker. The words seemed to come from very far away. Karen's carefully constructed case, her righteous fury, her absolute certainty, all of it built on a foundation of shadows and assumptions. That's impossible, Karen whispered. I measured the color difference myself. With what? That paint chip from 1987? Linda's smile was sad. Karen, the approved color list hasn't been updated in 20 years. Half the original paint manufacturers don't even exist anymore. Karen's mind raced, trying to process this information. If Linda was right, if the shutters were actually the approved color, then everything she'd done, the lawsuit, the courtroom outburst, the arrest, had been for nothing. But the regulations clearly state, the regulations are outdated, most of them anyway. Linda leaned forward. Karen, when's the last time you actually looked at your neighbors? Really looked at them? not their property values or their compliance records, but at them. Karen couldn't answer. She couldn't remember the last time she'd seen her neighbors as people rather than potential violations. Mrs. Chen's husband died last month, Linda continued gently. She's been struggling to maintain her yard. Mr. Jameson's arthritis is getting worse. He can barely hold a paintbrush. The Rodriguezes are working 3 jobs to keep their house. We're all just trying to get by. The silence stretched between them, heavy with years of accumulated resentment and misunderstanding. I don't know how to be anything else, Karen finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, you do. Linda's voice was firm. You organized the neighborhood watch program. You coordinated disaster relief after the flooding. You helped the Patels navigate the immigration paperwork. You used to care about people, not just property values. Karen remembered those days, before the HOA presidency consumed her life, before every interaction became a potential confrontation, before she'd forgotten that her neighbors were human beings with their own struggles and dreams. The hearing is tomorrow, Linda said, standing to leave. A lot of people are going to be there. You could apologize. Start over. Karen watched her leave, her mind churning with possibilities she'd never considered. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about regulations or violations or proper procedures. She was thinking about the woman who'd just shown her more kindness than she'd shown anyone in months. But as Linda disappeared from view, Karen noticed something that made her blood run cold. Through the visiting room window, she could see her own house in the distance. And there, clearly visible from this angle, was something that would change everything. Her own mailbox was 3 inches too tall. The irony was so perfect, so devastating, that Karen almost laughed. But as she stared at her violation, her own violation, she realized this revelation might be exactly what she needed. The question was, what would she do with it?